Hello, Dan here, and this is day 3 of the ENFP Reboot. And we are going to talk about two things today. One is a habit that will make a big difference, and the second is about modalities and how we choose to execute things. And I'm trying to make an example of that today. So, first thing is around habits. And you know what? I'm probably just going to lean up against this tree. It's going to be weird. Here we go. Try this out. So, how you start your day is tremendously important. And I'm not going to prescribe an exact habit for starting your day right now. We are later perhaps going to prescribe some habits for how you should not start your day. But one of the things I would really recommend is doing something at the start of your day, like right when you wake up, that is positively setting you up for success. So, for many people, this is exercise. For me, going for a morning run, especially if I'm somewhere like here, is very nice. But honestly, anywhere, even rainy Vancouver, the morning run was probably my favorite way to start my day. And actually, there was a period when I was just starting my copywriting business, and I really needed to be at my best. I mean, I was fighting stress, overwhelm, depression. I just went through a big business failure. It sucked. And I would get up every day at 6 and I would swim, do all these other things. Like, I had a whole routine. I'll go through some of that soon. And it really made a big difference in how I set myself up for success and how the day felt. So one option is to get up, leave your house, and start moving. Exercise like running or biking would be ideal, but if it's just going for a walk, that's really fine too. The next thing is creating something. So I have this back and forth debate with this, to be totally honest with you, and it's one reason that I'm not saying you have to leave the house right away and go exercise, because we're all different. There are days when I wake up and I have this creative flow going and I just want to start writing, or I want to turn on the camera like yesterday and just film something. I wake up and the words are there and I gotta go. And I have found that as much as going for a morning run, eating a healthy breakfast, going through things like visualizing the future I want can be really helpful, by the time I'm done with it all, that creative energy, that urgency to turn on the camera and go is gone. And then I'm feeling really good. I've got my exercise in, I've got my healthy food, but I've sort of went over the peak of that creative juices, let's say. So for this month, I am giving myself permission to choose on that. I can get up, and if I feel the desire to just jump right into the filming, for example, I will do that. But otherwise, I will get my ass out the door and moving and go for a run, bike ride, something like that. There is no option number 3. There is no, well, I will not go out and move, but I will not do much here. I'm just gonna check some emails, browse some social media. Nope, that is not gonna be an option. Now, let's get into modalities. There you go. We are back here in the very, very boring background. Okay, it's got a nice view, a little bit. Now, that we went through that horribly awkward small talk, let's get into modalities. So this is separate from functions, and I'll get into your functions as an ENFP as part of another video in the Reboot series here, and about how you should be working more in your functions and all this stuff. But today is about modality, and I mean that from the aspect of, if you want to say communicate to someone, there's different communication modalities. One is writing them a letter. Another could be emailing. Another could be speaking. Another could be with visuals, right? And each of these ways of communication affects us differently. Some people connect more with, say, something audio and listening to a podcast, whereas other people might connect much better to a video. It's also how we communicate most comfortably. So my most natural way of communicating is, where I find I'm in the most flow, is verbal only. So, for instance, you might want to check out the podcast, Dreams Around the World, where podcasts are found, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and everywhere else. Because sometimes I can record a much longer episode there, and I flow better. I'm more comfortable just speaking, not thinking about being on camera. And personally, I love listening to things even slightly more than having the video. And that's just kind of how I am. But we're speaking primarily around how we can get things done as ENFPs. So you want to think about the modality where you communicate best, as well as are there certain modalities, for instance, an email inbox, that tend to overwhelm you and lead you to feel like basically the need to run away, procrastinate, and not do it. For me, an email inbox is the worst possible form of communication. Because of the way it's set up, you see all the subject lines all at once, and then all these things are popping in your head. Oh, I got to do this and this and this and this. And there are some tools for that. For instance, there's a tool I like called Inbox When Ready, which is a Gmail plugin tool. But generally, email is a lot of overwhelm, and it can lead to this habit of opening something, checking it, not responding, not taking the right action on it. And it's also not a natural way to communicate. Now, I'm not someone who says everything we do has to be natural. I don't believe monkeys had cell phones or video cameras, and here I am. But I do think that the way we're meant to operate and live and move is most like how we used to and how is most natural. And that often people who struggle with, say, being productive, it's because we haven't really adapted as much to what is, in my opinion, a really poor way to live and communicate and all this stuff. Like, oh no, there's something wrong with you. You can't sit down and type nonstop all day responding to, black text on a white screen, because that's really stimulating. You need to be with people and personal and connect with them. Oh no, that's terrible. So this is something that I have implemented in how I live as much as I can. So, for example, with communicating with team members, I try to do phone calls or voice notes or be as interactive as possible rather than text, which, yes, technically is less efficient. But you know what's less efficient than having a phone call? Getting emails that you never read or respond to. So really, if you have to choose between what is technically most efficient, the thing you will actually do that you won't avoid, that won't depress you, is probably the right way to do things. I thought of this modality topic. It's something that I think is really important and something I bring up a lot with my freelancer and coaching clients but the reason I thought about it today is the aspect of walking and filming the video is a different way of approaching the same thing than, say, recording a podcast at home or filming at home like this. Even now, I'm filming slightly differently. I'm holding the tripod I was outside with. I didn't bother switching cameras. And so it probably leads to a bit of a different feel, a bit of a different communication style. And some people I have found when I've been working with aspiring entrepreneurs who, say, want to start a podcast or something, they don't really know what it is, but they know they want to communicate something, is they will really struggle to, say, do a podcast and then say, oh, I guess I'm not cut out for this kind of thing. Well, have you tried writing? Have you tried video? Have you tried doing something live that you then record and use in that way? Because often we do things much better live than, if you have an infinite number of restart buttons or stop and start buttons on the camera. So that's something that I think is really important to think about. If you want to get somewhere, like you say, okay, I have this message that I want to share, or let's just start with that. There's something you want to communicate and you struggle with it. Maybe you've been struggling to write a book for 10 years. Like, maybe books aren't for you, but maybe you'd be better off speaking or recording videos or whatever else. I know I am much better, at least different, but I think better and flow better when I'm doing things live than when I'm trying to do things to pre-recorded. Now, I will admit this video today, part of me as I'm even filming it here is thinking, I should probably redo this one. It's getting a little rambly, there's a little too many Dan jokes. But then the other part of me is like, part of this reboot is for me to reconnect with the way I used to present videos, which was more authentic and just speaking and just being there. And I've already seen a few comments appreciating that. Okay, I said a few comments. I've seen one, but probably by the time I post this, there will be another one, I hope. So I will ultimately be posting this. But with doing things live, like I can do a training call for an hour or two, and I generally flow and I'm comfortable with it and it all works. And then for the past, I don't know, it wasn't quite a year, but when I was trying to make more YouTube-y videos, let's call them that, with a lot of editing and cuts and B-roll footage and all these things, is I sort of enjoyed that process of learning about that and seeing what we could produce. There's a few videos. I'll link to one here, which is one of my favorites we produced, which ended up a great product. But honestly, I found the production of it much more tiring, much more difficult than just speaking and connecting in more of a natural human way. And that's something that varies. I know there's a lot of YouTubers. There's one relatively famous YouTuber in this personality space, whom I won't name, that I know doesn't have the same flow. Like everything is highly scripted, and you know, it's a 5-10 minutes of great content is 20 hours of work kind of fine-tuning that. And that's what they need to do to flow and to make it work. And most of the other YouTubers I know, everything is from a script, and that is what works really well for them. And I was allowing that to influence me a lot. And I will acknowledge that often a highly scripted, highly polished video is going to be better than just someone rambling off and going, speaking. But I realized after trying to fit into that mold for quite a while, trying to do things the way other people were saying, like, yeah, you need to have things scripted and do this way, it just did not work for me. Not only did I stop producing nearly as many videos, but in the process of filming, I often found myself much more frustrated. And I don't think the end product was ultimately better from the point of view of the message, which was, or the purpose, I should say, which was the message and the information, rather than something that is like purely entertainment, let's say. And so, yeah, that is it. So my takeaway for you for today is, number one, we talked about the morning habit of doing something that is going to positively get your day going in the right way. The two that I'm going to focus on this month is when I get out of bed, either leaving the house and starting to move. So for me, that will most likely be running or biking and just going, and that's it. And then take the day after that. Or jumping right into something creative. So if I happen to wake up with this creative energy where I really want to record a podcast or film the daily ENFP Reboot video, then I will do that. Otherwise, it's get out of the house and move. For you, it might be something different, but if you don't know what to start with, I would suggest getting out of the house and moving, ideally with some great music or something like that. 2 would be to read something that you find leaves you feeling very inspired and all that. You might have noticed I didn't recommend starting with these videos. That is, of course, an option as well. But, and that would be the selfish option for me to say, start your day with these videos, no matter what. But if that works for you, do that. But I do think that educational kind of personal development videos and things like that aren't always the right way, aren't always the right thing to start the day with. That sometimes just getting going with great music and moving your body and being more inside and thinking about what you want and what you're grateful for and everything else is better than jumping into something like this, which maybe is better to do every day at lunch or at the end of the day, something like that. Because when you're getting into like things about personal development, is often it then makes you think about this and all these things you maybe want to do or change in your life, which isn't necessarily the best way to start your day. That's what I have personally found. So that's the first thing. The second thing we got into is about modalities. So thinking about, is there something you've been struggling at or really tired, like drained by, you find it really tiring or just don't find yourself getting it done, that you could perhaps try a different modality, a different way of communicating with people. So an extreme example of this that I didn't mention in the video is if you really struggle with email and you just don't like that aspect of sitting down and going through it, could you perhaps hire someone and go through your email on a conversation with them? And they ask you, here's the message, what should I do? Here's the message, what should I do? As an extreme example. There's always ways to get through things that in a different form, a different modality, that are going to be more enjoyable and closer to how you are naturally wired. See you tomorrow.